For those of us chasing the creative life of being an artist, we often get focused on the long term, the training of our hand and eye, the learning of techniques. Well, in this short video, I'm going to share with you 3 quick pieces of advice that you can implement immediately that will change your work. Today I want to have a little chat with you and share some advice. So we're gonna have a little coffee talk. So kick back, get your coffee. We're gonna have a little coffee talk about being an artist. Now, the first thing that I would suggest if you're pursuing art is to treat it like a business. A lot of artists, the best artists I've ever known didn't wear a beret, a turtleneck, or snap to dialectic jazz. These people treated their work like a business. So get up every day and go to work. Now, what I mean by that is set your work hours. Set a time when you're going to work. You may be a night owl. You like to work in the middle of the night. That's fine. You may get up early and like to work. That's fine too. Find a spot in your schedule that works for you. Let your family know, these are my work hours. I will be working. Yes, I will be home, but I will be working. Because you don't want to be interrupted. Once you get in the groove, you're painting away and you're in the groove, you don't want constant interruptions. And that counts with your phone too. Maybe you have family or friends that ring you during the day. If you're busy, shut the ringer off. You're working your work hours, don't take calls. Or if you take them, tell people if you're busy. Say, look, I'm really into something, I'll call you later. Keep it professional, keep your nose to the grindstone. Now, like for instance, myself, my wife is a civilian, meaning she doesn't work in the arts. She works in office jobs. She works 9 to 5, 8:30 to 5. So I start work when she starts work. This way, I don't spend my life, we don't share separate lives together. She goes to work, I go to work. She knocks off for lunch, I knock off for lunch. She knocks off at 5, I knock off at 5, unless, of course, I have a deadline or something I'm working on that requires, more hours. Point is, set hours, let your family know you've got these hours, and keep those hours. Also, structure those hours. Personally, I like to do what I call the heavy lifting in the first part of the day. Any drawing I need to do, any detailed painting of a face or something that requires a great deal of concentration, do that when you're first coming at it. When you're awake, you first wake up, you're fresh, you're rested, you've got the energy to do it. Tackle all that stuff first. You've got all afternoon to package and ship mail and answer emails and stuff, but attack your art first and do it when you're fresh. Now, the second piece of advice is something that I've heard in my head every day since I graduated from college, because I went to work for a woman who owned a wonderful art studio in Detroit, and there were about 6 or 8 artists on the board at any time. But we constantly heard from her this phrase: presentation is everything. I do a lot of art shows, and I have a lot of inexperienced artists come to me, and a lot of times they'll bring their portfolio and they want advice. And they're asking for advice on the work, the drawing, the painting, the design, whatever. But I almost inevitably end up giving them this piece of advice: clean the edges of your paper. Fasten the pieces in. If it's a flip book portfolio, fasten the pieces in with a little bit of spray mount. If you don't value your work, no one else will value your work. I can't tell you how many times I've looked at portfolios where pieces were flying all akimbo and there was fingerprints and paint smudges and just schmutz and filth just on the edges of pretty fine work. But it brought the work down a notch. You could tell because the artist didn't hold their work valuable. So clean your work and present your work the best you can afford to do it. Now, I know frames are expensive and mats are expensive, but so what? That's the game we've gotten into. Spend the time. Make your own frames. That's an inexpensive way. Buy old frames at Goodwill and clean them up. There are ways around this. When I was working at the studio in Detroit, sometimes we would do a little piece of illustration for maybe a magazine or an ad or something, and we called it a bug. And they weren't any bigger than maybe, like a business card. Well, my boss, her name was Laura Parlov. I believe she's still at work at it in Detroit. Hi, Laura, if you see this. I appreciate your advice. It's stood me well over the years. If we did a little bug like this, we wouldn't just do it on a piece of illustration board and shove it at the art director. No, that piece of art would be done on a decent sized piece of illustration board. It would then have an acetate cell on it so you could see through it like a window. Then we would put a mat around it so that it was virtually a framed piece of art. Then we would put a tissue on it because the art directors would a lot of times mark it up. And then there would be a cover sheet that had our logo on it. Now, none of this was by accident. And you want to give people value for their money, not just in the content of the art, but in the way you present it. So they would go into the art director and they would literally, the art would be, like I said, a business card size, but they would do a presentation where they would fold back this beautiful cover stock with our logo and everything on it. Then they would fold back the tissue and do it virtually an unveiling. So this has gone around in my head every day for years now, but I always get compliments on my booth when I set up at a show. I always get compliments on the way my work is presented. People are not going to pay a lot of money for something that the artist doesn't even value or looks filthy. So take some time, clean up your work, present it in the best way that you can afford to present it. Hey, if you're getting value out of these videos, don't forget to hit that subscribe button, hit that like button, and hit that bell so you don't miss any of my upcoming videos. That really helps me grow the channel. Now, the third piece of advice I want to share with you is no matter what kind of art you do, you draw Asian style animation, you draw cars or paint cars like I do, you draw horses. I don't care. You do landscapes. I don't care what your art form is, what your medium is, what your subject matter is. If you want to be better at all of that, draw the human figure. Take those courses. Do the online courses. Set a time every day and practice your figure drawing. Well, you say, Jim, I don't even want to be a portrait artist. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about improving your skills and getting better at it. And this is something you can do every day. And believe me, drawing the human figure will make you draw cars better. It will make you draw landscapes better. It will make you draw anything you draw better, because the human figure is the thing that we know most. And if we draw it wrong, we know it immediately. If we draw it wrong, our viewer knows it immediately. Now, someone who's not an artist might not be able to tell you what's wrong with it, but they will know immediately you've drawn it wrong. Draw the human figure. The hardest thing in the world to draw is the human figure. The hardest of the hard is a pretty girl. So get to where you can draw pretty girls, and everything you draw or paint or even sculpt will get better. Drawing the human figure is the best thing that you can implement right now to improve your work. Even if you don't want to be a figure artist, it will improve every other aspect of your work because you're learning to draw shapes and you're learning to judge negative space. And as you train your eye and your hand to do that, that will translate to even putting brush strokes down on a painting, to drawing a landscape, to drawing something mechanical like a machine. Practice the human figure. It will be time well spent. You can do it right now. You can do it every day. You don't have to keep a massive sketchbook. I bought a big stack of newsprint paper, and I've got a pile of it right here in my studio with practice. I just draw them and throw them on the ground. You don't have to keep them. You don't have to show them to anybody, but this is for you. Now maybe this goes against what I said in the beginning, that it is long term, but it's something you can do right now, today, to improve your work. Well, I hope you enjoyed my little coffee talk here. I hope you got something out of it, and I hope you will implement these 3 quick pieces of advice. I think they will immediately have a drastic change on your art. So until next time, go make something cool. Owens out.